And next is Jason Carman. He's the founder at Story Co. And he's a young director at the dawn of an exciting filmmaking journey. He started at age of 9, and Jason's early fascination with filmmaking saw him creating short films and mastering visual effects. His dedication and talent earned him the Best Visual Effects Award at the All-American High School Film Festival, where he was chosen from 4,000 entrants, along with a full ride scholarship where he decided to pursue filmmaking full-time right out of high school. He gained diverse industry experience by working with 2K Games on creating commercial editing and production for video game titles and directing music videos and overseeing album rollouts in the music industry. A few years ago, he joined Astranis, a satellite startup with a mission to provide affordable internet to underserved populations. There, he created a compelling visual brand and documented the transformative impact of technology in remote areas, sparking his love for deep tech. Jason describes himself as a prove-it person, focusing on tangible results from big ideas. He believes in a holistic approach to filmmaking, where creating, marketing, and rolling out a film are all integral parts of cinematic experience, inspired by directors like Spielberg, Lucas, Nolan, and others. He aims to push the boundaries of storytelling and create impactful, thought-provoking content. As Jason embarks on his next chapter, his goal is to inspire optimism and empower others to share the future. With a proven track record of innovation and a bold creative vision, Jason Carman is set to bring in fresh, compelling narratives to the film industry and captivate audiences worldwide. We're so honored to have incredible friends here at Space Apps, and Jason is one of them. Is Jason here? Okay, so we've heard that Jason is just joining, but perhaps we can show the We Made a Movie or the trailer of the Planet film. Let's see what my team.
In a way, all the work that we've done over the past year comes down to next week. Our company exists to produce a new universe of sci-fi movies. And this short film is our first swing. And it's a story about a man who builds a planet.
Imagine if there's something right there, maybe like twice the size of the moon, like a planet. See, just see you, see that. One day, action. Bundes Noes.
Hey, Jason. Hi.
Hey, how's it going? Good morning, everybody.
Good morning. We're so happy to have you here. I just told our participants and partners a bit more about you, and we've shared We Made a Movie. But it's so cool to talk to you. I just wanted to ask you first if you can share a bit more about yourself and then who you are and what you do so they can hear it from you.
Yeah, well, my name's Jason. I think your intro did me more justice than I could do to myself, so thanks for that. That's right. I grew up an hour north of the Bay Area. I wasn't super interested in space and technology and science as a kid. Movies were definitely my love and my passion. But once I joined that company, Astronis, you mentioned, I was making small geostationary satellites for geostationary orbit and different cislunar missions, the government, the DoD, as well as just the commercial internet mission. I fell in love with space and engineering as a whole and haven't looked back since. I've never fallen in love so much with the subject matter before ever. And now I just see it as an incredible way to also tell stories that are sci-fi in nature, but are grounded in reality. So that's me, and that's what I'm working on. I'm here in my studio in San Francisco, our second building, where we're focused on making the next great sci-fi trilogy and some really exciting shows and movies about nonfiction people doing real science.
We have so many sci-fi lovers, and sci-fi was my initial introduction to this field as a kid. I grew up watching both Star Wars and Star Trek, and I don't have
Yeah.
a favorite. But I feel like storytelling is a big captivator, and I feel like we need it most in our field. Just because things can get complex and complicated and too in depth, so you kind of like have to explain that simply. We're
Totally.
really inspired by your work, where you feature scientists and a lot of professionals in our field. What was the one surprising thing that you saw in interviewing so many of them that spoke to you? What was the most inspiring? What was the most impactful?
I think there were two things. I think the first thing was that working at Astronis, I was lucky to work with ex NASA, ex SpaceX people, the whole industry in this one company, which is I think true of every other really awesome deep tech company or NASA program, is you have people with a lot of different backgrounds who've done a lot of impressive things. And I sort of thought that I wouldn't ever be able to interact with them or really understand what they were working on in a deep way. And I was surprised to learn that after 6 months of having lunch with these people, asking them to stay an hour after work and show me what they were doing more intricately, that I kind of realized that after maybe 3 or 4 or 5 months of shadowing them or working on their team as an intern or junior engineer, that I could totally be a meaningful part of their team if I wanted to. I could be like a legit engineer or aerospace engineer, at least more on the software side and maybe on some of the simpler mechanical engineering stuff. Whereas I thought, you can't do that unless you've got 8 years of school experience and a ton of experience. And while that's probably true for some of the more advanced fields, it shocked me to learn just how intuitive a lot of this stuff was and how easy you could pick it up. Whereas when I went to school, I think it was sort of taught if you weren't like a natural person in math by sixth or seventh grade, you had no hope of working at a place like NASA in the future. And so I think what impressed me and made me, so excited was seeing how learnable and approachable this stuff was, even if you're someone like me who wasn't naturally a math whiz in seventh or eighth grade. The other thing I think I learned was like there's just an unbridled sense of shared optimism between all of the new age of different deep tech startup companies. These people don't always know each other, but they say a lot of the same things. They're really excited about building the future and showing uh, these teams of people who want to build, a multi-planetary future, a more abundant future, a more equitable future, and that's just really exciting and inspiring.
No, I absolutely agree. And somebody who has been always in tech, but and in the sciences and also always communicating, I always saw that division of one versus the other, and I wanted to always combine both. So I think you're on the right track doing something really significant. And on that note, sci-fi I think ties a lot to it with innovation and inspiration and having a grip of something that can be imagined and created. We know that a lot of technology nowadays came because of that type of an inspiration. So I wanted to hear more about this new wave of why do we need those stories, why are they important? Just a few words about why you think creating such compelling narratives or universes even are meaningful today.
I think, like you mentioned, you grew up watching Star Wars and Star Trek. These are very optimistic, bright views of the future. Star Trek, is like just such a bright show. It's about this group of explorers trying to chart and understand more of the universe and kind of keep not overbearingly govern and control these other alien species and stuff, but try to have them fit into the larger tapestry of what the universe looks like. Star Wars is a darker story. It's about a whole civil war, but even the way they approach it is a very bright, sort of fun tone. And I think growing up for me the past 20 years, most of the movies that come out in theaters are quite dark, quite intense. Everything looks darker. The storylines are more pessimistic and negative. And I think that paired with the feeling that maybe the greatest achievement of American engineering happened already in the 20th century. Like the Apollo missions aren't something that we can surpass or do better than, but they're a relic of the past that we won't ever live up to. That's to me how I think history and the stories of like great American engineering and science have been taught. And the way I see it is that the future should be one where we try to outdo our ancestors in our past and make them proud in that. And I think the only way we get that is a culture that has stories that celebrate ambition, chasing a beautiful future, and fighting for it with serious intensity and vigor. And so I think that we want to make stories on the big screen that feel that way. That the real scientists and engineers can go watch and feel like we get mostly right in terms of the level of hard science that we hit in the sci-fi. And then also know that when you go home, you can watch our shows on streaming services or on YouTube and see that the same people that are making the sci-fi are the same people that are making these real science and engineering films about people that are really doing the actual work, unlike us who are just making movies about it. So to us, it's a tone thing. It's about how do we get that sense of yes, we can do it, and we can build this better, brighter future in a way that's shareable and it's not just done in the past. Like we can keep pushing the frontier today.
I feel like that's so important. And I was recently a part of a book from the European Astrobiology Institute where we have sci-fi people do their stories, and then you get the scientists, us, telling them what's achievable, what's possible. So it was a great like play of, oh yeah, you can imagine this, but how it would actually look like. And I feel like that's what a lot of our SpaceX friends are doing. We purposely invite so many incredible people. Garrett is now both an astronaut, but also a professional in space, a legend, and advisor for all mankind. We have people that like Andrew Aldrin that grew up in the space age, and he's the son of a moonwalker, Buzz Aldrin, and he just grew up, tracking that ecosystem and is coming here to help us frame narratives and then think about the future. So that's, I feel like, really important. And then I would love to, if our participants can know more about your important work and what you've been doing in the past, what's exciting for the future, if you can share a bit more about that.
Yeah, we just released Planet, this first sci-fi short film, which is as far as will scientists say that it's possible? Definitely not possible today, maybe in 1,000 years. But we did release a 20-page engineering document with it where we talked to a bunch of real scientists and engineers to get their opinions on it and tried to base it in a lot of math and engineering, which was a lot of fun to do. But Planet's online now at our website. We are uploading weekly again on YouTube. We're doing different deep dives on different frontier technical and engineering content. So a lot of stuff around AI, how that works or doesn't work in engineering fields. A lot of stuff on frontier manufacturing technologies, nanotechnology, and making humanity multiplanetary. And then in a year, or probably less than that, we'll have two shows on streaming services that you can go watch. I can't say which ones yet, but one of them is all about space. One of them is about deep tech in general. And then hopefully you can go see our next big feature film in theaters next year.
That's so cool. We're gonna show them a teaser or maybe even the full thing of Planet just to see and test out the waters of who's hacking right now and who's available to watch the whole thing.
Yeah.
But yeah, we're SpaceX itself is the biggest kind of like outreach platform on top of like creating solutions. So for me, this being the entrance to the space sector and making me a space professional was so meaningful just because you annually have these challenges, all of the new challenges created by space agencies that are pressing for humanity, and then you get to solve them, but you also get to create a video for them and then storytell. So for our participants that are trying to do a 30-second video and capture the really complex solution, what do you think the best advice would be for them? Because they're gonna hack for 48 hours, they're gonna pick a complex topic. How do they highlight that in a 30-second video?
Man,
Recap.
30
That's how
seconds
much
is
we have.
I would push for 60 or 90 is my step one. I did that with a client we were talking to this week. They're like, we're in a 30-second video. I was like, that's too short. Well,
Yeah.
but if you have to do it, I would start with like write a very clear script, ask Chat GPT to make it shorter and tighter for you and pack as much of your information into it as you can. And then, because it's app-based, a lot of screen recordings will be really compelling, as well as a video of yourself talking about it and intercutting it as fast as you can. Use some fun sound effects, whooshes, risers, or what we call them, clicking sounds if you're adding text on screen, and pick an energetic song. And I think that'll get you pretty far.
Yeah, that's an valuable advice. The reason why we have 30 seconds is because we're the biggest hackathon in the world. We're hacking at the same time everywhere across the globe. We have over 100,000 participants and even more sometimes. And everybody who is a judge, they have to go through all of these.
It's a lot
So
of seconds. Yeah.
yeah, getting that essence and that impact is really important. But what inspired you yourself as a kid to enter the kind of like deep tech scene and field? We saw your bio, but like what was the first moment that kind of like drew you into highlighting the harshest environment yet the most inspiring endeavor that humanity faced?
Yeah, I think I wasn't a kid when I got into it. I was definitely older, but I happened to be working at Astronis, and it was between that or working at an ad agency. And to be
Hmm.
working at the space company was much more interesting. And for me, what it was a lack of information. If you go on YouTube, you can see a million videos about Minecraft, filmmaking, music production. Name a common passion, and it's there. But if you go and you try to see real video or real documentary about people building in space or on the frontier fields of engineering, you're hard pressed to find anything, let alone anything from the people doing it, letting you into their lab or into their production facility and showing you around. And that's what led to me starting this weekly web series called S3 for 2 years, where we went and we documented over 100 of these different deep tech companies. And every episode we did, I just got more and more excited about it, seeing that people were doing this stuff, spending crazy amounts of investment money to do it, focused on trying to create this really exciting, valuable future for humanity through, hundreds of different technologies. And for me, it was like it felt like a rabbit hole. I just kept falling deeper and deeper and deeper. But for me, I think it was because I sensed it was underrated. And I was wondering, why was it underrated? Is it underrated because it's not valuable? Or is it underrated because there's a storytelling problem? And I think often what happens with the smartest people in the world who work on this stuff or are working at NASA is they're so busy focused on moving the milestone forward, going faster,
Mhm.
making progress, that storytelling takes a secondary role. And so I think having people that's sole job is to help tell those stories and share them in really meaningful, impactful ways is super important. Storytelling is so much. It's sales, it's pitching, it's lobbying, it's hiring, it's recruiting, it's all these different roles and elements. And it's very misunderstood. It's very soft. Like, even the advice I gave for the 30-second video is a little bit like as specific as I could be about sound effects and script writing. But how do you write an actual good script? It's a much harder thing to do, or it's more unclear than coding a specific part of an app, which has a little bit more specificity. There's rules to it, and it's just an important skill that I think everybody should learn, whether you're an engineer or you're a CEO of a space company. Learning to do really good storytelling is critical.
Yeah, speaking of storytelling and that being kind of like a secondary role in the space ecosystem, I felt that a lot. I feel like we're just now trying to combine both worlds and it still can be a struggle, but I've also seen the positive again on the note of looking for a brighter future. I feel like a lot of careers are emerging right now, and I guess companies are now being more proactive in um retaining talent that's a bit more diverse, right? Retaining talent that has a diverse skill set. But for anyone who kind of like is maybe good with some editing tools or loves the creating the videos or loves the storytelling, what would your advice be from your personal experience of how to join a space ecosystem that seems a bit, closed off for them? How would they, if they have a different skill set than engineering, how would they go about maybe like seeking for a role or an opportunity, again, if they follow in your footsteps?
Yeah, I think two things. Well, one is that if you're talking about how do I join an agency like NASA or ESA, I have no good advice. I've never done that. But I think some of these rules would still apply. I think there's two tracks that you can go. One is, how can you be valuable to the team or the company? And in my opinion, it's going and researching. Do they have a video team? Do they have a marketing team at all? Do they have an agency that's done this stuff? And one thing I can say for sure is that it's a 50-50. Some companies have that, some don't. And then some companies don't have any need for that yet. They will in the future, but they do have a lot of need for operations, whether that's supply chain, the facilities, which facilities at, a space company is pretty cool because you're building anything from a TVAC chamber to a vibe table to an anechoic chamber to, the list goes on. Operations at these companies is super critical. And in my opinion, from what I've seen at a bunch of companies, you don't need a specific skill set or even background in every aspect of operations to go and be really helpful at one of these companies. If you're willing to work long hours, work really hard and learn very quickly, and you can convince the people there of that, these companies are often very, very welcoming. I think, now the founder of my own company, I'm most compelled and inspired by the members of my team who want to move and be close to the office. They want to be in early and stay late, and they really want to help us drive the mission forward because the chance of failure with a startup is so high. And I think the number one thing, other than the founder and their willingness to give up or not, next to that is the members of the team. How many people in the team are really willing to be in early, work late, push forward on like what the real problem is that they need to be solving, and asking those questions and driving hard on that. So in operations, I think there's tons of opportunity. And with film or storytelling or blog writing, all these things are very valuable. My suggestion would be focus really hard on who is the startup selling to or trying to convince? Are they trying to sell into the government? Are they trying to sell into the DoD or NASA? Are they trying to sell to private companies? And understanding that really well will help inform the way that you can tell the stories and design those narratives. And then my other suggestion would be that in an era where making content is going to get even easier, with cameras being more affordable, with AI making it easier, the thing that will differentiate you or a given person is your personal brand online. What kind of content do you make? What audience do you have? It's not just about the size of the audience. It's about the quality of the audience. Are they like your audience? Is it like your audience that's a bunch of space fans? Is it like mine, which is some space fans, but some engineering fans? In trying to build your own audience that wants to support the kind of content you want to make will make you, well, A, you could have your own career as a content creator, but B, I would argue more interestingly, that audience might line up with another really ambitious team's needs, and you can merge that if you go to work at a company like that. And I think that's really valuable and exciting too. The internet's a big place, just like the world is, and there's a lot of opportunity to build a bespoke audience that shares your interests.
It's so interesting when I go back on my career track and realize how I've grown. You go from like hardcore just science and engineering lab work to the difficulty of operations when you have to like manage a team or a project, right? And then explaining that to people who fund it, right? Whether that's a VC or the government or through grant writing or whatever that is. You have those levels, so those are essential skills to have, and we're so grateful to have you give us some advice on that here. And then yeah, I'm one of your new projects is Planet. We'd love to hear how you had that idea, what it meant for you, how it came to be. So if you can share more before we play the teaser to our audience, we would love to know.
Yeah, I would. The idea for Planet came from, I was filming some S3 episodes, these deep tech documentaries in Montreal. And I was walking around one night before filming in old Montreal, which has these old big buildings that kind of look like the Palace of Fine Arts in San Francisco, which is the location we filmed at in the movie. And I was looking up in the sky, and the moon was full and extra big in the sky that night. It was so beautiful. And I kind of just immediately flashed back to images of other sci-fi movies where you see two planetary bodies or two moons in the sky. It's not just one. It's not just the sun or the moon. It's another one, and they're sort of next to each other. And I think it's just such a naturally beautiful image because it looks kind of foreign or alien, or it's out there. It's just beautiful, and it's something exotic we don't get to see every day. And it led me to thinking like, well, could you build one? If you wanted to build an artificial planet, to have that image, what would it take? What would it look like? And so that kind of began a multi-month, and also why would you build it? What's the need? And so the need very quickly became, well, if humanity's current interest in scaling computation and data centers for AI keeps going up to the right, eventually it becomes planet-sized, and not too distant of a future. Obviously, that's assuming a lot of like growth risks and scaling laws, keep working and being interesting to humanity, but you end up wanting to build a planet-sized computer. And the stories about this guy, Dr. Evran Khan, who is interested in, can we take the giant orbital supercomputer size thing, but then also do some extra work to build an atmosphere around it? And so the idea of that is like, well, you would need a shell. So there's not enough asteroids in our galaxy to crunch together to make a a single dense planet 3 times the size of the moon. Um, or there's just enough, but it would be a little smaller. So we figured it could be hollow. We could use stronger metals and alloys to make it extra strong, have these structurals. Um, and then the massification of the atmosphere can work if you have a magnetosphere, which we argue that they build a toroidal chamber in the center of the planet to kind of keep. And then the one big sci-fi silver bullet we take, everything I think I just said is possible, very hard to do, and would take a crazy amount of maneuvering energy and manufacturing technology. The big sci-fi silver bullet, though, that breaks some laws of physics is having an artificial gravity drive at the center, meaning that they can pump like a fusion reactor's energy into this special gravity drive, and that can create a fake gravitational field. Because one thing about all that mass and having that density is that it creates a gravity field that can keep the planet at that Lagrange L2 orbit point. And so that's what we argue in the movie, that this guy's cracked. The nice thing about it being a gravity drive too is that it can stabilize the orbit between the moon and Earth. So that's all the nerdy stuff that the engineering PDF talks about, which is a lot of fun. And then the movie explores the mentality of the main guy and his right hand man in the final 100 years of the creation of the planet. It talks about some of the hardships they've had, and it kind of explores the veil behind a leader like this, or a founder or a program leader, how they kind of present to the public, and then how they interact with their core team versus how they are when they're alone, and starts to question some of the motivations and inspirations of someone like that. So, yeah.
Mhm. That is so inspiring, Jason. Just thank you so much for coming here, talking to our audience, and giving us that presence. It is really fun to feature people who work with scientists that closely and can mesh two worlds into something so delightfully inspiring. So we're gonna be streaming your movie. We're so grateful
Cool.
for you coming here. Thank you so much, and stay tuned to watch Planet.
Yeah, thanks for having me, and good luck on what you're building, everybody.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. See you soon.